Good morning. And if you're over 60, I want you to listen closely because what I'm about to share could meaningfully change your future independence, your brain clarity, your energy on a morning walk, and yes, the health of your heart. Every single day, millions of adults in their 60s, 70s, and 80s are cooking with the wrong oils, dressing their salads with the wrong oils, and even taking heart-healthy supplements that contain the wrong fats. And over time, their arteries pay the price, not in some vague far-off way, but in measurable changes: rising inflammation, stiffer vessel walls, worsening blood pressure, reduced blood flow to the heart and brain, and a stepwise loss of the why artery health matters after 60 stamina and confidence that keep us living fully. I'm Dr. Samra Turilich, and for more than 2 decades, I've studied vascular biology and angiogenesis, the science of how blood vessels grow, repair, and function across the lifespan. And I can tell you, with complete clinical confidence after age 60, the oil you choose is not a minor culinary preference. It is one of the most consequential daily decisions you can make for cardiovascular health, cognitive health, and long-term functional independence. Let me give you a number that should stop every one of us in our tracks. In a landmark analysis published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, researchers following over 90,000 adults found that individuals who consistently consumed higher amounts of pro-inflammatory dietary fats had a 38% higher rate of arterial calcification, meaning hardening and narrowing of the arteries, compared to those who regularly chose anti-inflammatory fat sources. 38% is not a rounding error. That's the difference between arteries that behave like flexible responsive highways and arteries that behave like aging corroded, the hidden cause of poor blood flow, pipes struggling to deliver blood where it's needed most. Now, I want to make you a promise. If you stay with me to the end of this discussion, I'm going to reveal the #1 oil I recommend based on the most compelling clinical and mechanistic evidence I've reviewed for supporting cleaner arteries and healthier blood flow in people over 60. And I want to prepare you. It is not olive oil. Olive oil is excellent and it absolutely earns a place in a heart-healthy kitchen. But the top-ranked oil today is one most older adults have never seriously considered. And the research behind it is, frankly, extraordinary. Before we go further, I want to ask you something important, and I'd like you to answer honestly, either privately for yourself or in the comments if you're comfortable. How old are you? Do you notice chest tightness when climbing stairs? Do your legs feel heavy, achy, or unusually tired after a short walk? These symptoms can be early warning signs of reduced vascular reserve, and they deserve thoughtful evaluation, not dismissal as just getting older. And if you're watching this for a parent, spouse, or friend, those questions matter just as much. Today, I'm going to walk you through the 5 oils I rank from very helpful to how diet impacts your arteries, truly transformational for arterial health after 60, explaining the why, the physiology, the clinical trials, and the mechanisms so you can make informed choices with your clinician. Let's begin. Coming in at number 5, flax seed oil. If this one has been off your radar, I want you to reconsider it because your arteries have been waiting for this kind of support. Flax seed oil is among the richest plant sources of alpha-linolenic acid or ALA and omega-3 fatty acid that serves as a foundational substrate your body can use to temper vascular inflammation. Now, a critical point for my patients over 60, plant-derived omega-3s require enzymatic conversion to the most biologically active forms, EPA and DHA, and that conversion becomes less efficient with age, chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, and certain medications. Even with that limitation, flax seed oil still provides meaningful benefit, especially when used consistently and paired intelligently. In data analyzed by researchers at the Harvard Thachan School of Public Health involving more than 45,000 participants, higher intake of plant-based omega-3 fatty acids was the #1 best oil revealed, associated with a 28% reduction in cardiovascular mortality among adults over 60. That's a large, clinically relevant signal. Here's the physiology I want you to understand. After roughly age 65, many of us develop what scientists call chronic low-grade inflammation, a state where inflammatory signaling, mediated in part by cytokines like IL-6 and TNF-alpha and pro-inflammatory eicosanoids, doesn't fully resolve after a stressor. Think of it like a smoke alarm that never resets. It's not always blaring, but it never goes silent. That persistent inflammatory tone accelerates. Endothelial dysfunction, injury to the delicate inner lining of blood vessels, promotes oxidative modification of LDL cholesterol and creates an environment where plaque can form and become unstable. ALA and its downstream metabolites can help dial down those inflammatory signaling pathways and reduce the production of vasocon proathogenic compounds. For most adults, a practical target is about 1 tablespoon per day. But here's an essential safety and efficacy point. Flaxseed oil must not be heated. Heat degrades the delicate polyunsaturated fats and can generate oxidation products that are the opposite of what we want. Instead, drizzle it over salads, stir it into unsweetened yogurt, or add it to a smoothie after blending. A smart synergy tip: pair flaxseed oil with magnesium-rich leafy greens like spinach or arugula. Magnesium supports vascular science behind better circulation tone and endothelial nitric oxide production, and it may also facilitate more favorable fatty acid metabolism. At number 4, black seed oil derived from Nigella sativa. I want to be candid. This remains dramatically underutilized in mainstream Western cardiology, and that is a disservice to patients who could benefit. In clinical trials conducted at institutions including King Abdulaziz University and Cairo University, adults with hypertension, many over 60 who took black seed oil daily, experienced an average reduction in systolic blood pressure of about 11 memory mag after just 8 weeks. 11 points from a botanical oil. That's not a miracle. It's a pharmacologically plausible effect with growing human data. The key bioactive is thioquinone. Mechanistically, thioquinone appears to support vascular health through several converging pathways that matter enormously with aging. It can reduce oxidative stress in endothelial cells, modulate inflammatory transcription factors, and improve nitric oxide-mediated vasodilation, meaning it helps blood vessels relax and open. After age 70, we can see up to a 40% decline in functional endothelial capacity. If the endothelium is the non-stick coating lining your vessels, then thymoquinone helps repair and preserve that coating, making it harder for cholesterol, inflammatory cells, and clotting factors to adhere and initiate plaque. Foods that harm. Blood vessels. Reasonable dose is about 1 teaspoon of cold-pressed black seed oil daily. It has a bold, peppery, slightly bitter taste. Many patients take it straight. Others dilute in warm, not hot, water with a little honey. Do not cook with it. And here's a valuable synergy. Take it alongside vitamin D3 if your levels are low or insufficient, because vitamin D receptors and vascular tissue may work cooperatively with thymoquinone to amplify endothelial repair and immune inflammatory regulation. As always, review supplements with your clinician, especially if you're on antihypertensives, anticoagulants, or immunomodulating therapies. Now, before we move to the top 3, let me pause for a moment and make a respectful request. If you're finding this information useful, if it's giving you practical, evidence-informed tools you haven't heard before, please like this video and subscribe. I publish this content specifically for people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, because you deserve guidance that matches your physiology, your medications, your labs, and your goals. And now, let's get to the oils with the strongest cardiovascular data. At number 3, avocado oil. This ranks so highly because it favorably changes what's happening inside your arteries at a subparticle level, something standard cholesterol panels often fail to capture. A landmark study from Penn State University found that when adults replaced saturated fats with avocado oil, they experienced a 22% improvement in LDL particle size in just 4 weeks. Why does that matter more than total heart-healthy foods to add daily LDL? Because LDL particles are not all equally atherogenic. Small, dense LDL particles are like microscopic shrapnel. They penetrate the endothelial lining more easily, undergo oxidation, and trigger inflammatory plaque formation. Large buoyant LDL particles are comparatively benign. After age 65, many people experience a shift toward the small, dense pattern due to declining insulin sensitivity, mitochondrial efficiency, and hepatic lipid handling. Avocado oil helps reverse that trend. Avocado oil is also rich in oleic acid, a monounsaturated fat strongly associated with improved lipid profiles and reduced inflammation, and lutein, a carotenoid with antioxidant and endothelial supportive properties. Together, these compounds reduce oxidized LDL, arguably the most dangerous form of LDL because it's the version most likely to stick to artery walls and incite immune-mediated plaque growth. I think of a patient I'll call Dorothy, 69, from Scottsdale. Her cardiologist was concerned about elevated vascular inflammation markers. She made one targeted change. She replaced the generic vegetable oil she'd used for daily cooking with cold-pressed avocado oil. At her 6-month follow-up, her inflammatory markers had dropped by nearly 30%, and her clinician asked what she'd changed. That's the power of a single high-quality substitution done consistently. Avocado oil also shines in the kitchen. Its high smoke point around 500 Dagar makes it one of the safest choices for sautéing, roasting, and grilling while preserving beneficial compounds. A practical daily intake is about 2 natural ways to improve blood flow, 3 tablespoons distributed across meals. And here's a wonderful synergy. Cook colorful vegetables in avocado oil. Studies show adding a high-quality fat like avocado oil can increase absorption of fat-soluble carotenoids, lycopene, beta-carotene, lutein by up to 15-fold compared with eating those vegetables with minimal fat. That means more antioxidant delivery to your endothelium with every meal. At number 2, wild-caught fish oil. And I want to be very clear. This is not the omega-3s are good talking point you've heard for decades. I want to emphasize what the most recent high-quality evidence actually shows and why aging changes the rules. A meta-analysis published in the New England Journal of Medicine, pooling data from over 77,000 participants, found that marine-derived omega-3 supplementation reduced major cardiovascular events by 25% in adults over 60 compared with placebo. But here's the nuance almost never discussed in popular media. After about age 75, the enzymatic conversion of plant ALA into EPA, DHA drops by roughly 35% due to declining hepatic desaturates activity, plus the added burden of inflammation, oxidative stress, and common comorbidities. Marine omega-3s, EPA, and DHA bypass that bottleneck. They arrive ready to use for cell membranes, anti-inflammatory signaling, triglyceride lowering, and endothelial stabilization. EPA in particular has a Dr. Samra's key health advice, compelling mechanistic profile for vascular protection. It reduces pro-inflammatory leukotrienes and resolins imbalance, lowers triglycerides, improves endothelial nitric oxide bioavailability, and may reduce plaque vulnerability, the tendency of a plaque to rupture and cause a heart attack or stroke. DHA is especially important for brain structure and neurovascular coupling. How well blood flow matches neuronal activity, an issue I care deeply about as my patients prioritize cognitive longevity. I recall a patient, Thomas, 76, a retired teacher from Burlington, Vermont. After one stent procedure, he was appropriately anxious about recurrence. His integrative cardiologist added a high-quality pharmaceutical-grade fish oil, concentrated EPA, DHA, alongside guideline-directed medical therapy. Over 18 months, serial imaging suggested slower than expected plaque progression, and just as important, he felt more energetic and less tight on exertion. He told me it felt like his circulation had been given room to breathe. For most older adults seeking cardiovascular benefit, I typically recommend about 2 to 3 grams per day of combined Epiplier taken with your fattiest meal to maximize absorption. Choose a molecularly distilled third-party tested product to minimize contaminants, mercury, PCBs, and a high-value synergy. Pair fish oil with CoQ10, particularly if you take a statin, because statins' daily habits for longevity can lower CoQ10, and CoQ10 supports mitochondrial energy production in cardiac and vascular tissues, working hand in glove with omega-3s to improve cellular resilience. And now, the #1 oil I recommend for supporting cleaner arteries and better blood flow in people over 60. As I promised, it is not olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil remains a cornerstone of the Mediterranean pattern, rich in polyphenols like hydroxyl and oleoanthol with excellent trial evidence for cardiovascular risk reduction. But if I'm selecting the single most targeted oil for arterial inflammation and oxidative stress in aging adults based on the convergence of mechanistic biology and emerging clinical data, the winner is oregano oil, oil of oregano. I know that may surprise you, but the data on its principal active compound carvacrol is unusually compelling. In a study published in Lipids in Health and Disease, carvacrol supplementation significantly reduced arterial inflammation markers by 53% in older adults with metabolic syndrome, a cluster affecting over 40% of Americans. Final thoughts and takeaways: over 60 and strongly associated with endothelial dysfunction, hypertension, and accelerated atherogenesis. A 53% reduction in inflammatory burden is the kind of signal that gets my attention, because inflammation is the common soil in which hypertension, insulin resistance, plaque growth, and cognitive vascular injury all take root. Now, let's talk mechanism, because this is where oregano oil stands apart. With each passing decade after 50, our intrinsic antioxidant defenses decline by roughly more 10 to 12% per decade, leaving vessel walls increasingly vulnerable to oxidative stress, essentially rusting from the inside via reactive oxygen species, ROS. Carvacrol has been shown to inhibit key oxidative and inflammatory pathways implicated in age-related vascular disease, including downregulation of 5-lipoxygenase 5-LX signaling and reduced activation of NF-κB, thereby decreasing production of pro-inflammatory cytokines and adhesion molecules that cause white blood cells and lipids to stick to the endothelium. Carvacrol also demonstrates antimicrobial antibiofilm properties in preclinical models, which is relevant because low-grade vascular colonization and inflammatory remodeling may contribute to chronic endothelial irritation in susceptible individuals. I think of a patient I'll call Patricia, 72, from Memphis. She had what her team called treatment-resistant hypertension, blood pressure that improved but never fully normalized despite appropriate medications and lifestyle changes. Under clinician supervision, she added a standardized oil of oregano supplement. More on quality in a moment. Over the next several months, she achieved the most stable blood pressure reading she'd had in over a decade. She described it as finally turning down the pressure valve in my whole body. Again, this is an adjunct, not a replacement for prescribed therapy, but it can be a powerful one when chosen wisely. Important guidance: do not use kitchen oregano essential oil internally, and do not cook with it. The form I recommend is oil of oregano in enteric-coated or soft-gel capsules, standardized to at least 70% carvacrol. Typical dosing in studies and clinical practice is 1-2 capsules daily with food. Because oregano oil can be potent, it may interact with antiplatelets, anticoagulants, or certain GI-sensitive conditions. This is exactly why clinician oversight matters, and the synergy I find most exciting. Pair standardized carvacrol with quercetin found in red onions, apples, capers. Quercetin and carvacrol appear to act on complementary anti-inflammatory and antioxidant nodes, giving you broader coverage against the multiple pathways that drive vascular aging. So, here's what I want you to take away from our time together today. Your arteries are not inert plumbing destined to fail with age. They are living, responsive tissue, constantly experiencing micro-injury and, crucially, constantly capable of repair. The stiffness, the rising blood pressure, the fatigue on exertion, the brain fog, the loss of confidence on a long walk. So much of what we wrongly chalk up to normal aging is driven by modifiable processes: chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, insulin resistance, poor lipid quality, and endothelial dysfunction. And the right oils used consistently and correctly can directly address those drivers. I've watched patients in their late 70s and 80s regain circulation, stabilize blood pressure, reduce inflammatory markers, and reclaim activities they thought they'd permanently lost. Not because we found a miracle, because we finally gave their vascular system the raw materials, the metabolic support, and the anti-inflammatory signaling it had been missing. Your independence is worth protecting. Your ability to travel, to play with grandchildren, to think clearly in meetings, to sleep without nighttime leg cramping, to wake up feeling capable. Those outcomes begin in everyday choices: your cooking oil, your dinner plate, your supplement quality, your follow-up labs, your conversations with your clinician. If this was helpful, please subscribe and share it with someone over 60 you love. And I want to hear from you. Which of these 5 oils will you start with and why? Please tell me your age and one symptom you've been noticing even briefly, and I'll do my best to address it in future content.